When we say buyer's market, what we're talking about, there are a lot of homes and not as many buyers.
Correct.
So we're seeing that in most of the areas, just as we talked about in past episodes, that doesn't always apply to all areas. There are some markets that are just hot no matter what. One being the luxury condo market, because we do find that a lot of seniors are moving in. So I would say that that's still a very, very hot market, very much a seller's market for sure. Prices may have gone down, but the demand is definitely still there.
Yes.
So again, a buyer's market means many homes, fewer buyers, lots of opportunity for buyers. Buyers are calling the shots. Seller's market would be the opposite. Lots of buyers, not as many homes. Sellers are calling the shots, which is kind of what we're still winding down from the last few years and people are still adjusting to. Balanced market just means that there's a good amount of both buyers and sellers. So that was kind of the transitional period I would say we were in prior to this buyer's market.
Yes.
Schedule A in the agreement of purchase and sale is where you will find the negotiations are happening. This is where the warranties are. This is where the conditions are. Let's talk about financing conditions,
Yes.
because that's probably the most common, most talked about, one of the most interesting.
There's so many different purposes for financing condition. The first step, obviously, you're going to get pre-approval. But with the pre-approval, the bank is just skimming through your stuff. When they get your papers and your mortgage broker or your mortgage representative from TD or RBC just kind of skims through everything that they're provided. So within that 5 conditional period days, so it's usually 5, that's what standard is, that's when they're deep diving into everything that you already submitted, right? So a lot of times somebody might say, I got pre-approved, but then I didn't actually get my commitment within that 5 business days. What happened, right? And it's just because they just look over it. They're not delving into it in as much detail as they do once your offer is accepted, and they're looking through everything a lot more thoroughly. That's one of the purposes of having that finance condition in there, is to actually get a commitment from the bank.
I love that you said that, because realistically speaking, like sometimes, and this happens, okay, so I'm not here to call anyone out, this is just something that happens. You'll get that pre-approval, you'll feel so good, it's a good number, you're feeling yourself, and then you do something silly, like get a new car.
Yes.
Put something on your line of credit,
Yeah.
right? Swipe that card a little more frequently to celebrate this win. Please don't do that. Getting the pre-approval is not the same as getting a full-on commitment for the home. So if you start doing these things, swiping that card, spending your money, that now alters the financial situation, the financial picture for the lender, and you are no longer potentially, and we've seen it unfortunately, you would no longer qualify, or you'd have to make some changes and pay off that debt really quickly, because the lender will check again during that 5-day period, and they could check again prior to close, just to make sure that everything's aligned.
And sometimes they do a day before closing. I've seen it happen, and people think, oh, it's a week, we're good, I can make some change. Even people don't even think switching their jobs. If you're switching your job that's in a completely different field, yes, I get more money in my new promotion, that impacts too as well. So if you've bought a house, you have your financing condition in there, don't make any changes. Please just keep things the same, because you don't know how it's going to impact. And we would hate to see something fall through because of something that was done, right?
Exactly. And like, honestly, guys, you've read the headlines. You know we're not a fan of them because they don't paint a full picture. But if there's one thing that we can say has been true, it's just that the economy has been rocky for the last few years, right? The one thing, banks are panicking a little bit. There have been so many defaults on mortgages. Unfortunately, we've seen that. You know, we've had sellers come to us and ask us to help them out with the sale of their home. Maybe they're upside down on the mortgage, stuff like that. The banks are trying to avoid that, right? We've finally, you know, over the last couple of years started to see the interest rates come down. We're finally starting to see some action in the market, some more action in the market. Buyers are feeling more confident. Do not be one of those people. This is exactly what the bank is trying to avoid. And yeah, it may have seemed like a few years ago they were kind of just handing out mortgages when the interest rate was like 1%,
Yeah.
you know, or 2%, but that's just not the case anymore. So please do yourself a favor. If this is something that you really want to do, you've been working on this for a long time, you've saved up, you got your credit up, like, you know, do not shoot yourself in the foot. Do not be your own worst enemy here.
Yeah.
Just stay still for a few weeks.
Yeah. And the other thing that the finance condition is good for too as well, especially if you're buying a house and you have a 30-day close, we personally like to use that finance condition if you're putting in over 20% for appraisal to be done. The benefit of that is essentially the bank's only going to give you a certain percentage of the house. So if the appraisal falls short, you have to come up for that difference. So good to do that appraisal within that conditional period of time when your agent can go back and negotiate if it fell short. That's another added benefit if you're doing finance and condition, right?
Absolutely. And I love that you said that, because at the end of the day, yes, you're absolutely responsible for that shortfall. And what we're seeing now, because as we mentioned, some sellers are upside down on their mortgage, you really will have to come up with that shortfall. We won't always be able to negotiate a lower rate for you, because sometimes that's what the seller needs to close. That's just the reality of the market that we're in. So taking into account that you're already getting the house at a pretty discounted rate in this market, that's just the reality that we're seeing. It's going out right in offer broadcast.